Way back in the day in 1965, two twin baby boys slopped out of their mother. Bruce and Brian Reimer. As cute as they were, they had a bit of a problem. Both boys were born with phimosis, an odd medical condition that, in monetizable terms, meant that they had trouble peeing properly due to a non-retractable skin on their little fellas. Well, that's not the worst. I mean, just a simple circumcision would pop those turtles right out of their shell, right? Normally, yes, if you have a decent doctor. A description apparently not befitting of Bruce's doctor. The physician who performed this rather routine surgery decided to be a bit unconventional and cauterized the freshly cut skin rather than a traditional stitching. This deviation from standard procedure rendered Bruce's manhood completely non-functional at just 8 months old. Outraged, the Reimer parents refused to have Brian undergo the same treatment, so his jacket still had its hood. With Bruce's medically malpracticed member, Reimer's parents eventually found one Dr. John Money, which sounds more like the prim and proper version of Johnny Cash, except Money would be performing a lot more hurt. Dr. John Money was a medical psychology professor at Johns Hopkins University. His research centered on theories of gender identity and gender roles. He would eventually pioneer the process of chemical castration, a drug treatment on sex offenders to completely eliminate their violent desires, which is pretty cool. But what's not cool is his role in the life of Bruce Reimer. After the Reimer family got in contact with Dr. Money, they were advised to have Bruce's remaining male parts surgically removed and to swap teams, undergoing gender reassignment and instead being raised as a girl. Bewildered, the parents agreed, and at just 2 years old, Bruce Reimer became Brenda Reimer. Although later in life, Bruce stated that he never really identified as female. But Dr. Money didn't stop there. He pushed further and tried to upsell just beyond the base model. Looks like little Brenda's gonna need some hormone treatment, and while you're at it, I can throw in a vagina as well. It'll look like a chewed up wad of gum, but it'll do the trick. We're just gonna take the hormone treatment? Thanks. No one ever wants the vagina. But this is where things started to really take a turn. You see, Money had a theory, one that explored the influences of nature versus nurture as it pertains to gender identity. He believed that such identities are instilled upon us through our upbringing rather than our biological traits. And this would culminate into one of the most strange and disturbing experiments I've ever read about. So thanks, YouTube comments section. Appreciate that. In what I can only assume would be a way to further his research, both Brenda and Brian regularly visited Dr. Money for routine checkups to see how the change had impacted their relationship and well-being. At just 6 years old, Money began exposing the children to explicit adult content. Even worse, he reportedly forced the two children to reenact certain poses featured in these films and had, at least on one occasion, taken pictures of the children doing this. Both children had reported incidents of Dr. Money's temper when resisting such requests. They stated that although he was calm and well-mannered in the presence of their parents, he became violent and verbally abusive behind closed doors. When discussing the events years later, Brenda recalled one specific event where Dr. Money had yelled at him for refusing to undress when both children were forced to inspect each other. Years later, a now teenage Brenda was propositioned by Money to undergo a full transition surgery, but Brenda repeatedly and adamantly refused. After years of, let's not sugarcoat it, full-blown sexual abuse, Brenda hit a psychological breaking point. It was at this time that the Reimer parents broke the truth to Brenda that he was born as a boy. And immediately, Brenda abandoned life as a girl, took on the name David, and even underwent reconstructive surgeries to restore damage done to him. Dr. Money, however, fraudulently reported his work as a successful female gender development, using it as evidence to support future gender reassignment cases. But in 1997, David came forward with his story to discredit Dr. Money, speaking to the horrors of his upbringing and the mental toll it took on both him and his brother. David's testimony was published across several high-profile magazines, but as freeing as it was to tell his story, it wasn't enough to free him from his mental anguish. In 2004, David had taken his own life at age 38, just 2 years after his brother, Brian, had overdosed on antidepressants. Dr. Money had brushed off David's testimony as merely right-wing and anti-feminist propaganda. According to the Intersex Society of North America, however, many individuals within the intersex community had condemned Money for falsifying his report, as it had led to thousands of surgical procedures done on infants as a matter of policy. Over the following years, Money would continue to have many of his theories debunked by his own social experiments. He never faced any consequences for his explicit actions with the Reimer twins or any other families that he had impacted with his practices. John Money ultimately cashed out of this mortal coil in 2006 at the age of 85. As an added kick to the butchered dick, even though Brian never had the surgery to cure his phimosis, that condition that kickstarted this whole thing, it eventually corrected itself with age. So it is likely that Bruce would have also outgrown this condition, sparing both brothers from their cruel fate. But hey, hindsight's 20/20.